Hello and welcome to my Midnight Mansion Chimps guide. For this one I was challenged by someone to make a guide easier than theirs, so I did it and it was fairly simple. We're going to start by placing Sada as bottom right as possible. This placement is actually very important because you need to make sure all of your towers are packed in as closely as possible, just to prevent some RNG leaks. Before round 8, place a tack shooter as top right as possible in that corner. This doesn't really do much now, it's more just a placeholder because we need to place other towers around it and it's just easier to place this first. Before round 10, shove a druid as top right as possible next to your tack shooter. And you're going to upgrade this druid to hard thorns and then thorn swarm when you can afford it. Before round 14, you're going to place a wizard as top right as possible, yet again, next to your druid. This will become a Dragon's Breath later, and kind of carries the early and a lot of the mid-game too. Also, sometimes you don't need to place this wizard now, sometimes you can just place it later, but I've encountered some RNG on 14 and 15, but it's not actually RNG, it's just placement issues, but eh. Feel free to Leaping Sword on 15, but you shouldn't need to. Before round 20, upgrade your druid all the way to Druid of the Jungle, and make sure to leave it on first. Over the next few rounds, upgrade your wizard to Wall of Fire with Monkey Sense. And here it is. Now save up for Dragon's Breath. Just get Dragon's Breath at some point before round 35. You can get it as soon as possible like I did here, but you shouldn't need that to beat the round. After round 39, upgrade your tack shooter all the way to overdrive with even faster shooting. And then place an alchemist directly below it, and upgrade that alchemist to acidic mixture dip. Depending on where the AMD buff gets thrown, you might need to Leaping Sword. If it gets thrown on the overdrive, you shouldn't have to. But if it gets thrown on Sada or the druid, you might have to, like I did there. And then upgrade said alchemist to Berserker Brew with Perishing Potions. Before round 46, remove that weird obstacle thing, and then place a village as bottom left as possible, and upgrade it to primary training with Camo Vision. You want your Dragon's Breath to be in range of the village. Whenever you can afford it, upgrade your overdrive to the tack zone, or the better name for it, the crack zone, because it is absolutely cracked even after the nerf. and then buy stronger stimulant on your alchemist. At some point before 63, upgrade your druid to Jungle's Bounty. And the next, a lot of rounds, are pretty much entirely AFK. Feel free to use Sword Charge on both waves of 78 if you need to. You shouldn't have to, but if you really want to, you can do it. Oh yeah, you can also use Sada's abilities at pretty much any time during this run, as they don't get used. I would mostly recommend using them on the DDT rounds, as those ones can get a bit sketchy sometimes. And then, to start building those vines as soon as possible, upgrade your druid to Spirit of the Forest when you can afford it. Back to being AFK for unreasonably long amounts of time, because this strategy is really good. At some point before round 90, place an Ice Monkey as bottom right as possible next to Sada, and upgrade it all the way to Super Brittle with Deep Freeze. Deep Freeze probably isn't needed, but you can just get it if you want to. Also, you should probably buy the Embrittlement like as soon as possible, just because it makes most rounds a lot less close. And as I said earlier, feel free to use your abilities on the DDT rounds, as they can get pretty close, but only if you get bad RNG. In the middle of 92, place a ninja above Sada because you should be able to fit it there, and upgrade it to Sabo as soon as possible. You want to get it as soon as possible because you kind of need it for 93. Before round 93, place a bomb shooter above your Super Brittle, and upgrade it to Moab Assassin with the bottom cross path. I'll explain why the bottom cross path in a little bit. And then Sabo, once the third BFB on the left turns all the way to the right. The reason I decided to go for the bottom cross path instead of the top cross path is that this Moab Assassin, and soon to become Moab Eliminator, is used pretty much exclusively for around 100 damage. So, more range equals more damage on round 100, because that's its only purpose in this run. And then, for 95, Sabo, once you reach about $8,000, and if you want to use some of Sada's abilities here, feel free to do that, as they're not going to get used anyway, so you can use them if you want to, just to be safe. You can also set your Moab Assassin to strong if you really want to. Not needed for this run, but just something extra you can do. Oh yeah, you should probably use a Moab Assassin on 97, but you don't have to. Sometimes a Bloon gets there, so if you want to use an Assassin, you can do that. And then on 98, feel free to use any of Sada's abilities, just don't use Sabo. And then at some point before 99, get Moab Eliminator. And then Sabo, like a few seconds after the round starts, I guess. And if you really want to use a sword charge here, you can do that. And then for round 100, use Eliminator twice, and do not use any of Sada's abilities for the bad layer. And then use a third Moab Eliminator ability 2 seconds after the bad turns to its final damage phase on non-fast forward. And sword charge to clean up if you want to. Good job on your Midnight Mansion Black Border. Have a nice rest of your day, and goodbye. Someone challenged me to make a Midnight Mansion guide easier than theirs, so I just did it because why not? This map is also like a lot easier than I remember it being, because when I tried to Black Border it originally, a while ago, I kinda struggled with it for some reason. Not exactly sure why though. Goodbye.